No, I'm not kidding. I had to take a breathe in for this because, yes, your favorite neighborhood Tenkaichi is going to just take a stab at what could possibly be the worst thing that I could ever read, and 40, why you keep going in and out on Mass Effect like that. One will never know. Anyway, last night I went through the top 25 underrated Super Nintendo games. And now, you want to know what's even better than that? You really want to know what's even so much better than seeing something like this? Well, something like what you've seen last night, if you have followed or watched any of my videos or something like that to an extent. Well, these are the top 25 worst games of the last 25 years. And yet, I look at this generation, and I want to slap the living shit out of the people who say they want to play something. They want to play some games that are hyped out there. I've never hyped out a game before, and I'm definitely never even gonna start. And trust me, most have felt the rage of an angry Tenkai. With my blackjack manga over on my bedside, as well as my DVDs, because I feel like I'm going to be watching them for the rest of my freaking evening. Let's go. Alright, let's just sink in here. And by the way, if you want to know who sent me this, Blame Ryu. That is all. Because I can tell you one thing. Some of this shit, you will never see me play on my channel. And some of this shit haven't even cracked the ceiling of what's going to be on my channel, should I ever go back to shit-tastic games. Humanity has made great strides with technology these last 2 decades, which in turn has extended our lifespan, exceeded our physical limits, and helped us explore the great beyond in creative fields of art, music, and fashion, to name a few. We pushed our boundaries and helped to usher in a higher form of thinking that has influenced our everyday lives. Life, imitating art, imitating life. It's amazing to witness and dwell on our advancements, praising the best of the best for their great work. Many greats of the last 25 years, like Michael Jordan, Will Smith, Dolce and Gabbana, Kanye West. Wait, since when was he? When was this motherfucker part of the best of the best, huh? Motherfucker can't even read a good book. Or he doesn't even want to read. Dumbass bastard. And Christopher Nolan have an unmatched talent that sets or have set them apart from others due to their expertise and keen eye. I'm sorry, but Kanye West doesn't have either talent, expertise, or a keen eye. He's a poser like anybody else that claims they know what good music is. Unfortunately, not all men are created equal. Sure, we all are human, and we all make mistakes. But for some, those mistakes are astronomical. Maybe we're exaggerating here, but nothing feels worse than sitting through a terrible 2-hour movie or a torturous 8-year presidency. The same holds true for gaming. In fact, it may be worse. Let's say you flip through your Game Pro or Nintendo Power and fell in love with a game that you begged to get for your birthday. And once you pop that game in and play it, you're left with the biggest piece of shit imaginable. Now, that's not exaggerating. What's so appalling about piss poor video games is that you've wasted valuable time and brain cells on such a game. Now, some shitty games are a dead giveaway, but some you believe in so much and still manage to let you down. But some you believe in so much and still manage to get let down. Yeah, let down. That's the best way to describe it. These let down are all creative equal. They're poor controls, choppy graphics, and barely any replay value. And you'll notice a trend in game developers, not to say they're bad, but they have managed to scar us for life. Clutch your pearls and take a trip down memory lane with us as we check out our list of the 25 worst video games of the last 25 years. And for all intents and purposes, no, don't, and I repeat, don't request any of these to me. Because I will say, hell, fuck no, are you out your goddamn mind? 25, we're starting with South Park. Yeah, this is a piece of shit. I don't care what you say, I don't care what nobody says. You will never see me actually ever play a South Park game, nor would you ever see me slap one up on my channel. I know I do shit-tastic games sometimes, but I'm sorry, nothing hits below the barrel than South Park. The original South Park was developed by Iguana Entertainment, Appaloosa Interactive, Gradente, and Acclaim. And the consoles were for N64, PlayStation, and PC between the years of 1998 and 99. We wouldn't be surprised if this was a practical joke from Trey Parker and Matt Stone. South Park's huge following peaked out interest with this title, but the PlayStation version was disappointing. The N64 version was enjoyable, but we grew tired of that title quickly. After hearing the same lines repeated over and over, this game left quite the lasting memory, but not one that surpassed the show's genius, or lack thereof. Yeah, I never did like South Park. It just basically, it wasn't that funny. I mean, it tried to be funny, but, you know, that kind of humor can only last for so long, but then you guys say, nah. This one. Number 24. Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Battle 22. I see nothing wrong with this. Look at this. Gohan is kicking Captain Ginyu right in the balls. Look at that. What's wrong with that? Developed by Bandai, Atari, and Infogrames for the Sony PlayStation of the years 1995 in Japan, 96 in Europe, and 2003 in the US. I think it's safe to say that we were all huge Dragon Ball Z's at one point in our lives. That's why this game was so heartbreaking. Of course, we had to make do with what Bandai and Atari offered us, despite it being total trash. The game was not as selectable as future DBZ games like Budokai and even earlier installments like Super Butoden. But we were stuck with one against our will, though it could have been worse. Yeah, a remake of Mystery of Shenron. Yes, I'm talking about Dragon Ball. Dragon Mystery, Dragon Ball, whatever it's called. Dragon Power, that's what I'm thinking of. Dragon Power. Yeah, we could have had a remake of Dragon Power. Ah, yes. This one, number 23. Duke Nukem Forever. Developed by 3D Realms, Triptych, Gearbox, Piranha, Aspyr, and 2K Games. All on the consoles of the Xbox 360, the Sony PlayStation 3, Mac OS X, and Microsoft Windows. That came out 5 years ago. Not only was this game the most anticipated game for several years, it was also the biggest disappointment of 2011. That's on us here. Duke Nukem Forever's poor controls and load times were enough of a hair puller to deem it one of the worst. We wanted nostalgia fest, not a dated piece of work. For all those who were fans of Duke Nukem, y'all got shafted. I'm gonna leave it at that. Y'all got shafted. Number 22. WCW Backstage Assault. Oh, it's done by Electronic Arts. Oh, how nice. Developed by Kodiak Interactive and Electronic Arts. And it was for the N64 and Sony PlayStation the year 2000. EA felt the need to expand on WCW Mayhem's backstage areas by creating a game solely based on that. Though the premise would work better for an ECW game, they opted to roll with WCW and produce an abysmal wrestling game. Keep in mind, that was in the same year WWF No Mercy was released as well as WWF SmackDown, not WWE. WWF. And by the way, for the wrestling fans out there, I have sad news to import, but Mr. Fuji passed away. Died at the age of 83. Yes, he passed away. You would think that they would come up with a better idea to compete. Hell, no idea would be fine. Give us the wrestling ring, and that's the sport that's centered around it. It didn't help that the controls and graphics were unforgiving. You can blame this game for the death of WCW. Rest in peace. Number 21. The one I never played. Batman Vengeance for the PlayStation 2. Developed by Ubisoft. This was also released for the Xbox, the GameCube, the Game Boy Advance, and Microsoft Windows 2001. Batman Vengeance had a lot of promise and potential. The artwork and voice actors taken from the animated series motivated us to buy and try out the game. We got trolled, however. The controls were not smooth, which didn't help that as the AI would whoop your ass early. This game was a major headache, and that's before the awful flying and driving segments. That's your ass now, isn't it? Stupid ass motherfuckers. Learn to find a good game for yourselves. Idiots. Number 20 on the list. NFL Quarterback Club 2000. Yeah, I remember I read this in past magazines, and really I was never into football games. I'm still not into football games, however, I don't mind watching them. Whether it's real or video game format. And this was developed by Iguana Entertainment and Ahem. And they were for the N64 and the Sega Dreamcast of 1999. Despite the travesty known as WCW Backstage Assault, you shouldn't mess with EA. Acclaim's attempt at a NFL football game resulted in a title with typical problems games developers struggle to overcome. Poor control, crappy graphics, and unfair AI. We haven't spent much time on this game. You see, we're not quitters. We would rather stop playing than destroying our controls out of frustration. Damn right. Number 19. Oh, God, number 19. God damn. The more I look at this, the more uglier they get. Ready to Rumble Revolution for the Nintendo Wii. Good thing I never touched this game or found this game. I would just like walked away. It was developed by Aki and Atari. Now I remember Aki made another game that they were partially that they were a part of the creation, and that was Ultimate Muscle for the GameCube. New versus original Legends. I remember I covered that on my channel before. And this is for the Nintendo Wii of 2009. Buy Punch-Out instead. Any Punch-Out will do. It doesn't matter. The third game from the awesome Ready to Rumble boxing series is a joke. A very bad joke. Just like this generation. They're a very bad joke. Aki and Atari's attempt to combat Punch-Out Wii with an established boxing series resulted in controls that needed more work. The characters that we do not want to play as. We miss Afro Thunder and the good old boys. Never meaning no harm. Sorry. Oh god, now we're turning to the games that I actually touched for some godforsaken reason, or I actually looked at. I remember this game too, because I remember I remember the store that is still to this day open. Excuse me. And it's called Game Force, and it's located in the Baldwin Hills Mall. Final Fight Streetwise. Never touched the game, but I do remember watching some footage of it. Capcom Productions Studio 8 and Secret Level. Wait, those were the developers? Studio 8? Secret Level? That must have been the Secret Level of Capcom all these years. Well, shit, no wonder they've been pumping out terrible games. It was from a Secret Level. And they were for the Sony PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. The year, oh god, it was 10 years ago. Poor Final Fight. If it weren't for the Street Fighter series, our favorite characters would have been mercilessly dragged through the dirt with no saving grace. Oh wait, Alpha happened. Never mind. The older series followed a new character. They still managed to take a dump on our favorite fictional city. They should have stuck with the Final Fight arcade release on the Xbox and the PS3 and called it quits there. That or, made a Final Fight 4. Because I would have preferred a Final Fight 4 instead of Final Fight Streetwise. Because anything like this would not be any less civilized. And Star Wars games that I've actually played on my channel. This one. Street Fighter, the movie. This one. And yes, I did play the arcade version. And it was terrible. It was so terrible that after that, I said, okay, I'm going to do this, take care of this, and just say hell no to this. So, Street Fighter the movie. And they had other releases too. Oh, I don't know. I believe they had other releases to it. I can't remember what other releases they had to it, but this was done by Capcom and Incredible Technologies, saying how that technology really wasn't all that incredible. And this was released on the arcade in 1995. Well, the movie sucked. How do you think the game was? Midway gave Capcom a run for their money, believe it or not. The digitized graphics trend led Capcom to this travesty that looked horrible and played just as awful. We wonder what would have happened if this was Street Fighter 3. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the biggest troll right there. Instead of putting a Street Fighter the movie, no, you put a Street Fighter 3 right there in the background. Right where the shadow, right there with the shadow insignia is, right there. Street Fighter 3. You can't see my cursor, but I'm making like a 3 right there, like an invisible 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that really would have been trollish. And even more trollish, it would have been Street Fighter 3 starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. This one. I've forgotten where we are on this one. Fuck the numbers. King of Fighters X, Neoblood, or EX. Developed by Marvelous Entertainment and Sammy. Now, Sammy, I can tell you one thing. They delivered some mediocre games in the past. And even on the arcade, they actually did a reasonably good job on their stuff. But seeing this is not done by SNK, but it's done by Marvelous Entertainment and Sammy. And this was released to the Game Boy Advance 14 years ago. This game's release was pretty sneaky since there was no real date announced. Screenshots of the game look promising and gorgeous due to it being a King of Fighters 99 port. The additional character did not save the game, however. Choppy graphics ruined the combos. The music and sound spoiled the game, and not to mention the poor controls. King of Fighters X2, Howling Blood, was a great redeemer. Okay, this is one I've never heard of. And one I'm pretty much not going to see for a long ass time. Amy, developed by Vector Cell, was released for the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and Windows of 2012. This downloadable survival horror is passable. Save your console's memory. There's no motivation to finish the game. Better yet, even play the game. Thanks for nothing, Vector. So yeah, the game is a downloadable survival horror, and we know me. I don't get scared by survival horror. I get pissed off by survival horror. Next one. Simpsons Wrestling. Oh God, why this? For Big Ape Productions, Fox Interactive, and Activision. Developed by all three of them. And it was for the Sony PlayStation 1. Oh God, this is terrible. And this was 15 years ago. How and when will this game be a good idea? The answer is, it won't. We love The Simpsons, so it's implied that we ate up the humor of the game. But we rather opted out of suffering through the gameplay. The title had more fighting than wrestling, and it was difficult to look at. Instead of wasting time on the game, you're better off playing any SmackDown game and watching The Simpsons. They shouldn't mix aside from the Bret Hart episode. Next. Oh God, this game. This is truly a shitty ass game. Because if you guys do not remember how fucked up this game really was and how fucked up this game really is, you have never lived until you have seen Pit Fighter. Developed by Atari, Tengen, and Konami. Only in Japan, huh? And they were released for the following: the arcade, the Amiga, the Commodore 64, the Game Boy, the Sega Master System, the Sega Genesis, the Super Nintendo, the Atari 7800, oh god, why? And the Xbox Live Arcade. Again, why? From the years of the early 90s, from 1990 to 92. We find it amazing that this game had many ports despite being a terrible game. The arcade version was lame, and every port that followed was below par, very lackluster. You can't expect to beat this game unless you pick Ty, the kickboxer, and have tons of patience. A good indicator that a game is bad is when the characters you're forced to pick lose in literally every demo. And why did I buy this game again? I've never touched the game, so I can't say it. I just only remember it. And then we come to this. Was a game? Oh, well, no wonder. Space Jam! Remember how much they really just milked the hell out of the songs that was in Space Jam? And yet, I remember it clear as day. My graduation song, because I graduated from high school in 1997. Our theme song was I Believe I Can Fly, in the wake of Space Jam. I don't want to touch the sky anymore after seeing this. Developed by Sculptured Software and Acclaim. The consoles were for the Sega Saturn, the Sony PlayStation, and DOS. Why DOS? And they were released in 1996 in America and a year later in Japan. Space Jam was a very hokey, yet fun family movie for the children and parents that love Michael Jordan and Looney Tunes cartoons. The game? Not so much. Acclaim and Sculpture tried to recreate the movie, which they pulled off. But they also created a terribly boring basketball game. Oh, thank you, I was going to say. You were better off with Looney Tunes B-Ball. And speaking of which... Ugh. This game that I did on my channel, and pretty much every other LPer's worst thing they could ever see and wanted to see being blasted off the face of the goddamn planet Earth. This game that dared to even have a goddamn sequel for no apparent reason at all, because this game thought it was doing something. Yes, it was doing something well. It's called pissing people like me off. Shaq Fu. Developed by Delphine Software, Electronic Arts. And they were released for the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Nintendo Game Boy, Sega Game Gear, and the Amiga. Amiga? Why? In the year of 1994. This joke of a game starring Shaquille O'Neal pits him against several adversaries in another dimension. When you're young, you buy into any idea. When you're a little Shaq fan, you buy stupid games and watch terrible movies. Kazam. Steal. Shaq Fu was one of several attempts by O'Neal's PR team to defame his public image and end his career. Okay, that may not have been the case, but you could have fooled us. And what is he doing now? Yes, if you own the Jaguar, okay, Kevin, please, for the love of God, man, I hope you don't buy into this. Kasumi Ninja. Now you're asking me, how do I remember the Jaguar? Oh, I remember the Jaguar, and I remember how much, and I remember that there weren't that many units sold. Hell, even when I went to Toys R Us, no, There's just... I mean, look, this is wrong right here. This picture by itself is wrong right here. And this was developed by handmade software. Well, no wonder. Shit. This really was handmade software because this is a pile of shit. And the only console was for the Atari Jaguar. The box art was better looking than this piece of shit right here. $19.94. This game is karma. When you rip off a game, you run the risk of falling flat on your face. This is especially true when your team of developers are asleep at the wheel. Atari tried their luck with digitized actors and managed to produce a piece of garbage. I'm sure it's harder than it sounds. Ah, yes. Now we come to the game that I tend to remember, but it was never that well developed. Final Fight Revenge. It never came out over here because there was never a US release for this game. And mind you, this is after the original trilogy. Final Fight Revenge. Once again, Studio 8. Capcom USA this time. It was released for the arcade and the Sega Saturn in the years between 1999 and 2000 in Japan. I thought there was also a Saturn release, but I guess that never came out to be. Capcom can't win them all. They took the iconic Final Fight series and turned it into a fighting game in typical Capcom fashion. It's not a bad idea when you make it a hideous, cheap 3D fighter that was better off on a drawing board. Final Fight 2 and 3 were never considered canon sequels, but unfortunately, this was as well streetwise. But the difference between Final Fight 2 and 3 was they were better handled. They were better handled. And plus, come on now. Who didn't want to see a 360 spinning pile driver done by the mayor of Metro City himself? I like that. That's awesome. I only wish they kept Cody and Guy in for, like, say, the third game, but at least they kept Guy in, but where the fuck was Cody? I just want him to come back. At least Streetwise stuck to Final Fight's roots, though it sucks as bad as this game. No, I'm not getting... I kind of am getting sick as I'm reading this shit. Ah, yes. Remember this piece of shit for the N64? And I'm glad nobody has ever picked this game up, and if they did, something was wrong with your ass. Clay Fighter 63 and a third. Remember that game, Clay Fighter? Pepperidge Farm remembers. And Pepperidge Farm also remembers why this game was cheap as fuck as it could be. Developed by Interplay. Its only releases were for the N64 and the Wii Virtual Console, which thankfully I never did pick up. In the year 1997. Clay Fighter is a cult classic for the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. Interplay wrote it into the dirt, though. 63 and a third was clunky like the prior versions, but it wasn't fun this time around. The game was almost a year behind its intended release, hence why the game felt unfinished. The Sculpture's Cut that was released after was meant to be an upgrade, but like the prior game, it was rushed. A mint condition of the Sculpture's Cut did manage to sell for $900 due to how rare the game is. Only 20,000 copies were made and were meant for rental only. It doesn't make the game good, however. don't be fooled by the price record it set. Ah, yes. This game I never even touched while still having my Wii. Cruisin'. Developed by Just Games and Midway for the Nintendo Wii. In the year of, 2007. Do you own any cruising games? Cool, just play those instead. This game could have been the Wii killer if it wasn't kept under wraps. You can let out a hearty sigh of relief for that. Midway intended to make cruising velocity for the Nintendo GameCube before scrapping the idea to make Fast and the Furious. Unfortunately, they lost the license during production. This game is a good idea as to why. I was never into that. And oh boy! I remember this piece of shit that you will never see me do on my channel. Thank you. Mortal Kombat Special Forces, developed by Midway for the Sony PlayStation in the year 2000. The dark days of Mortal Kombat were upon us in 2000. Midway decided to move away from fighting games to bring adventure games that would serve as a side plot and character development. The success of Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero was an indication that they were onto something. Then they blew it. To their defense, they rushed the game after John Tobias left during production. Can't knock them for trying, though they failed miserably. Speaking of another train wreck, Tits the Game. I mean, Charlie's Angels. Yeah, remember the movie that was based off that old 70s show with the hot-looking chicks, and then we got mediocre chicks in the movie? Yeah, I remember them too. Developed by Nico Entertainment and Ubisoft, and it was only released for the Sony PlayStation 2 and the Nintendo GameCube in the year 2003. It's a shame that Ubisoft's name is tied to this travesty. This is really a video game equivalent to the BP oil spill. Beat-em-up games have never really translated well onto 3D platforms, so that would be your first indicator. The graphics, though it was in 2003, could have been much cleaner and improved. We'll call that Strike 2. Lastly, like most terrible games, this one is boring, dreadful, and downright pointless. True that. And then we come to a game that I've never even heard of. Kabuki Warriors for the Xbox. Developed by Genki, Lightweight, and Crave Entertainment. I crave no entertainment like this. From the years of 2001 in America and 2002 in Japan. This game is just plain weird. The worst game of 2001 goes to Kabuki Warriors, since you can allegedly win the game by bashing the controller against my ass, according to Andy McNamara. The game's major flaw is how confusing it is. The controls are simple as well as the concept, but the confusion comes in when you try to figure out why you bought the game, why you playing the game, and why this game was even made. Then we come to this piece of shit that I remember I put on my channel. This game, which is notoriously bad for a term that I have actually lived through, because my neighbors across the street were that kind of family. They were baby's kids. They didn't die, they multiplied. Although I wish I could drop a nuke on their asses. They're no longer living though. In our neighborhood. Developed by Radical Entertainment, Motown Games, and Paramount Interactive. And I remember it was for the Super Nintendo. And I remember I rented this game. And I remember I turned it back in as soon as the next day came. 1994. A true shake my head game. This buggy beat 'em up game based off the hilarious movie based on the late Robin Harris stand-up routine was homage in poor taste. Why don't development teams stop what they're doing and realize their game sucks? Picking LeSean will result in a frozen game or walls that cannot be passed. Yeah, you're forced to switch your game off. At least they made it easy for you to give up. And now we come to the game in which everyone knows because everyone wants to forget. And one game in particular you're never going to ever see on my channel. Superman 64! Or Superman The New Adventures. Developed by Titus Software. Console for the N64. In the year 1990, shit like this happened. For every absolute great, there is an absolute failure. With a masterpiece like Ocarina of Time in existence, the N64 needed a piss-poor game to balance the library. Enter Superman 64. Like most terrible games, the controls were lousy and inconsistent. At times, the controls were too responsive, resulting in overactivity, and other times, the controls were totally unresponsive. Not to mention, fighting as Superman was embarrassing with his wimpy punches. There was a silver line for Titus Software, despite the PlayStation game cancellation. After the game's release, Superman 64 went on the third best-selling N64 title. Thank the 6-year-olds of America. But have you ever noticed that if you put Superman in any game now, in any other game, they kind of had him right and they kind of not had him right. Okay, history of Superman. From my standpoint, the first Superman game I remember was on the NES, developed by Kemco. It was a piece of shit. And then later, there was a Superman game for the Sega Genesis. Really good game. Didn't have the theme song, but played good. And then there was one I remember I found because I was curious, and it was for the arcade. And it was done by Taito. Taito. Always do something really good and always make sure it's decent. Plus, I'm probably the only person who remembers that the second player was Shazam, or Captain Marvel. First player was Superman. Made sense. Any other game past that? Let's see. The last game that I ever played with Superman was Injustice. They kind of had him dead on. And then there was Superman Returns. The open world, something happened. Can't say what. And then I dare not want to remember Superman 64 because in my brain, it never happened. It never existed. As I'm looking at it now, the show was better than this piece of shit. Not going to count the Lego games because I haven't played Lego Batman 2 and 3 for that matter. And I have them on Steam. And yet we remember this one because I remember I too did this on my channel. Balls! The Battle of the Balls. Developed by PF Magic Accolade and was released for the Sega Genesis, the Super Nintendo, the 364 in the year 1994 and 95 for Sega, Nintendo, and the 3DO. And this is, mind you, the last game of the list! In which I didn't have to really read, but I'm reading it anyway because you know why. Blame Ryu. But then again, you know, it was going to happen. If I read the best underrated 25 games on the Super Nintendo, then I had to go through the worst 25 games of the last 25 years. Oh, and that list keeps on coming. Well, I got a list too, but I'm going to share that next time. This game had to have been thought up during an acid trip, since we're certain the only way to truly enjoy this game is when you're on an acid trip. The graphics sucks, the music sucks, and the AI is incredibly cheap. I can just picture the development team high-fiving each other while testing this craptacular piece of work. Action 52, anyone? Accolade's true triumph in gaming came with Bubsy, but a gamble on this terrible concept put the nail in the coffin for this company. We wouldn't say that Balls was Accolade shooting themselves in the foot. Rather, this game was suicide. And like I said, I had my own share of shitty-ass games that I don't know why I played. Because maybe people wanted a cheap laugh, or maybe that's why some people have come to my channel because they wanted a cheap laugh, or maybe, I don't know. Some people I can find to call masochistic. Some people, I could say, are freaking sadists. But as I'm looking at this, really, I'm not blaming Ryu for this. No, I'm blaming Ryu for this. But I'm not mad at him for this because, you know, I went through something like this before. And 25 of the worst games of all time are enough in a slouch at. Because, you know, who else wants to read about this? I can share this on Facebook and you can read it for yourselves, or I can put this on Twitter and y'all can see for yourselves how messed up and how horrible some of this shit is. And apparently there's something for, and apparently they're on YouTube too. But I don't give a shit for none of that shit. But for that, I am going to share this, so please, if you do have anything of the sort that could be considered a run-up to this list, please let me know in the comments. And you know the drill. To my channel, if you like what you see, anything at all on my channel, do like, subscribe, and share it to your local media should you have any, and well, we'll take it from there. Until the next time, I've been the Tenkaichi of gaming and the hero among you gamers and otaku out there, Pookie7. And I shall see you next time for whatever the hell I feel like showing. So take care, God bless, have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you next time for more great content, silly content, and those in between the two. So Senpai's blessings upon you all, my good people. Take care, and see you next time. Tenkai Muso.